Hi, my name is Keith Tenzer, and I'm really excited today to talk to you about the Temporal Worker Controller. This is an absolute game changer for everyone that is maintaining, upgrading, versioning their production temporal applications, as it makes it a real breeze. And I'm going to show you why. On the left, I have a Kubernetes environment. You can see my worker controller is running. It runs in Kubernetes as a CRD. In the middle, I built a little demo application here to kind of illustrate some of the capabilities and walk through some of the scenarios that the worker controller supports. And on the right, of course, is Temporal and its workflows, which we're going to look at. And before we start the demo, it's really important to understand versioning behavior. So in Temporal, a workflow can have three different kinds of versioning behavior. The first is kind of the default if you don't specify one, or kind of the legacy mode, if you will, which is unspecified. This is what most people, or what everyone's doing who isn't using the worker controller. Then there's pinned, which pins a workflow to a specific version for its duration. And then there's auto upgrade, which allows the workflow to float or move to a new version while it's running. So let's kick this off without further ado. I'm really excited to see how this works. I'm kicking off here a scenario A pinned workflow and a scenario B auto upgrade workflow. They both have some timers, so they're going to run a little while. And while they're running, we are going to go into the Kubernetes deployment here. You can see there you can control the ramping, you can control the scale down once we get to B of A. But I'm going to switch here to B so we can roll out this new worker version. And I'm going to do that with a kubectl apply. And then I'm going to watch the controller. You can see here that the controller is going to show us its current version is VA, but its target is VB, and what its ramp is. Currently it's 25%. That means if I started additional workflows, then 3/4 of those would land on A and 1/4 would land on B. You can also see in the UI here that we have a nice kind of visual of this ramping while it's in progress. And what we're going to do while we're waiting for this ramping is we're going to observe our workflows. So here's our pinned and our auto upgrade workflow. Let's look at the pinned. You can see here that it has the build ID VA and it's pinned. The versioning behavior is pinned. So this, and you can see here, it's waiting on this timer. Now, it's only going to run for, runs for a minute and 30 seconds. If this workflow ran for 24 hours, that would mean that we would not be able to shut down the VA worker until this workflow completed. So we can only shut down the old worker or the VA in this case after all of the pinned workflows complete. You can see this one completed. So once the ramp completes, then A can be shut down. While that's now occurring, let's look at the auto upgrade. Here you can see the build ID again is V-A. The versioning behavior is auto upgrade. Again, it has a timer, and I've also illustrated here kind of with the activities. It runs an activity before and after the timer, and it prints out essentially what version worker it ran against. So the first activity in the workflow task ran against A. And now this has ramped, and once this timer fires, since it's auto upgrade, it should change the build ID to V-B and complete the rest of the workflow on that B version. And you can see, in fact, that is exactly what happened here. The timer fired. You can see that we got a result back from B. We went from A to B. And you can see here also the build ID changed to V-B. That is the difference between pinned workflows and auto upgrade workflows. Now, before I let you go, I have one more scenario to walk through, which is a rollback. And so what we're going to do here is we are going to start a scenario C workflow. This workflow will fail. It's going to fail because the workflow class is not registered with the version B workflow. And so what I'm going to show you is how you can roll back to A. We're going to basically do the reverse of what we did just for illustration purposes. So let's look at this workflow first that we have running. You can see it didn't even start because it failed on the workflow task, which is the first thing it tried to do because it wasn't registered. So this workflow is stuck. Of course, we could fix the worker code in B and register this and it would work, but we're going to do a rollback in this case. So I'm going to go back to the Kubernetes deployment, and I'm going to change the B to A, and then we are going to do a kubectl apply, and we are off to the races here. We're just going to monitor this. You can see here the UI also recognized that the rollout is starting, and yeah, once that completes, this workflow should also complete. All right, and we can see here that it completed, and I'm just going to refresh this here. And yeah, you can see here that build ID switched from VB to VA. And you can see here in the workflow itself, here's where we were, where it failed. And then as soon as we got the ramp complete and we're on our current version back to VA, which is over here, then this workflow was magically able to proceed because, of course, the A worker does have this class registered. And so, again, those are a couple different scenarios to show you. There's a lot more you can do with this, of course. This is just kind of to get started and understand some of the concepts and how this worker controller just makes managing the process of versioning and upgrading so easy by taking away all of this complexity, spinning down, draining, all of that kind of stuff. So hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it very much.